every day if I get up in the morning and interact with the same electrical engineers,
Right.
nothing is going to change. Instead of just advising people to do that, we need to put our money where the mouth is. That I personally think it's the leadership problem. Now we have almost like 270 crore worth projects.
Did anyone actually read through all the 1,000 pages at the end?
To make two ministries to talk to each other is not going to be easy.
So, someone who is preparing for JE, so can there be a different model to evaluate students? Hello and welcome everyone to the 16th episode of PodChat. Today we have Professor V Ramgopal Rao with us, and he's currently a professor of electrical engineering and the immediate past director of IIT Delhi. Before that, he served as a PK Kelkar chair professor for nanotechnology in Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Bombay. He is a fellow of IEEE, the Indian National Academy of Engineering, the Indian Academy of Sciences, the National Academy of Sciences, and the Indian National Science Academy. Welcome to our show, and thanks for joining in, Professor Rao.
Thank you. It's my
So,
pleasure.
so to begin with, how would Professor Rao would describe Professor Rao?
I, I am very passionate about what I do, and I am also quite hardworking. And whatever I take up, I usually give my 100%. It never any job, small or large. Nothing is what do you call it? A small job for me.
Right.
I will always give my 100% whatever I do. I think this is one quality in me, which I think is why I am able to do well in some areas.
Great. And so, what excited you about electrical engineering that you pursued it and joined as a faculty in electrical engineering department?
At the BTech level, it was basically the availability of options for your rank.
Okay.
I don't think I had any particular interest in
Hmm.
electrical engineering at that time or electronics, which is what I specialize in.
Right.
And but in the masters, I was interested in microelectronics. But again, in those days, I did my masters from IIT Bombay. So even there,
Hmm.
for my kind of background and the rank and whatever options I
Right.
had, so this looked like the best.
Okay.
And so I also chose that because it was something which I thought is good and which I was able to get at that time at IIT Bombay. So I think I had a totally an open mind, and I think
Okay.
that what happens to many students in the country. You want to pursue something, but I think
Hmm.
what you get is
Right.
what you make the best out of. And in my case, I think that's exactly how it happens.
So, so did you plan to go into industry or a job, or were you decided that you have want to become a professor?
I think until I joined my master's at IIT Bombay, I wanted to do MTech and then take up a job because
Okay.
that's why you go to an institute like IIT Bombay because you can get a good job and all that.
Hmm.
But my aptitude for research, or I discovered my aptitude for research while doing my MTech at IIT Bombay.
Okay.
I realized that I'm good in doing research. I enjoy
Mm.
going to the lab and conducting experiments. I enjoy pursuing things which I do not know about, and I think I got excited with research at IIT Bombay, and that is when I thought, why not pursue an academic career?
Hmm.
And so instead of just thinking of a job after MTech, I decided to pursue my PhD.
Okay.
After my MTech, and that's how I got into that. So I think the discovery that I am good in certain thing
Hmm.
that happened to me at IIT Bombay. Until that time, I thought I'm like anybody else and go to Bombay and
Right.
do an MTech and find a job and settle down. But I think seeing the professors there,
Hmm.
the environment that existed there, and the laboratories, the facilities, that triggered that interest in me as a researcher.
Hmm.
And, I pursued it because of that.
Great. And so, what brought you to nanotechnology specifically?
It was again being a microelectronics engineer. So I was working with nanoelectronics.
Okay.
I mean, that was a gradual transition.
Okay.
Anything that was micro earlier,
Hmm.
it
Right.
becomes a nano later.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. But then I started to explore beyond electrical engineering, the
Okay.
nano electronics, beyond the traditional electronics kind of a thing. And that is when I started to use some of these nano principles to build sensing platforms and to apply them to the real world kind of a scenario, and work with the chemists to see how these self-assembled monolayers of these atoms, how they can be integrated into a CMOS device, and how those monolayers can be used, a layer of atoms can be used to improve the performance of a device. So my association with the chemists, and my interest in applying the nano principles to things, which you can help build on. I mean, things
Right.
which could not have been built without the nano.
Hmm.
So I started exploring new domains, and so my nanotechnology interests right now are not just limited to applying them to electronics,
Hmm.
but also applying them to sensors. So I work in both areas now. I have a 50-50 kind of an interest. One
Hmm.
area related to nanoelectronics, the other area related to sensing platforms that utilize these nano principles, and then build platforms and systems which would not be possible without the nano.
Right, and I also came across that you have been pushing forward this idea of interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity at your institute. So that has been really amazing. So, can you elaborate on that? So, how that you came across and did?
I think one thing I strongly believed in, even in my own research, is that if you just confine yourself to doing research within a narrow boundaries of a discipline, after some time you run out of ideas
Hmm.
and you become repetitive. What others are working on, you tend to follow their path, and I think original research. I think though it can happen by working within those disciplinary boundaries, but you cannot be innovative all the time. I think
Hmm.
you do that for some time, and after some time it looks like you're run out of ideas kind of thing.
Right.
But I think using one's disciplinary background and connecting that to other disciplines. For example, I would have written almost like maybe over 50 papers with chemists, the chemistry department faculty, working with me, and me working with the
Hmm.
chemistry faculty. We would have
Right.
written at least 50 papers in good journals in the world,
Hmm.
or top journals in the world, and that opened up many avenues for us. We were able to even transfer some of these technologies to industries, and then open up new kind of directions for some of this research. All that happened because of my collaborations with the chemists. So I have worked with biologists, I have worked with chemists, I have worked with physicists. So I worked with a diverse set of people. But in all those cases, the ideas were mine. I had a problem to solve in
Okay.
my discipline,
Hmm.
and I tried to see how some of those disciplines can help me to address those issues. For
Right.
example, to give you one example, you have a layer in your CMOS device, and you put a metal on top of that. This metal diffuses through that layer, to that oxide. Now you want to arrest the diffusion because you don't want that metal to diffuse to the oxide.
Hmm.
Traditionally, what people have done is they have used 30, 40 nanometers of tantalum nitride, titanium nitride kind of materials. And whereas I try to see if there can be other kinds of class of materials,
Hmm.
which are monolayers of these atoms, which you place on top of this oxide, so that it can you use electronegativity or a process of
Okay.
repelling the metal atoms. I think I
Right.
started to look at those
Got it.
fundamental concepts, and started to work with the chemists very closely, see what materials are they working on,
Hmm.
and how they can be integrated into the CMOS platform. So some of those were the kinds of things I did. So, but everywhere, I had a problem to solve, and then I went to all these people to find a solution to that problem. I did not search for that solution within my boundary disciplines. I
Right.
did not talk to other electrical engineers to solve that problem, because whatever solutions they could provide,
Hmm.
I could have thought about them myself. And all of that
Right.
is also available in the literature. But the moment I started talking to people outside of my discipline
Hmm.
who had no idea about what I was trying to do,
Hmm.
they came up with very fresh perspective, a very fresh way of looking at the problem, and that oftentimes helped me to branch into newer areas,
Hmm.
and contribute to that area of knowledge in a way. So So
Right.
that's how it is my research progress.
It's a great example to see because I have seen at many places the people in the engineering departments and people in the science departments don't go very along. Like there is always kind of a conflict between the two, some sense of. So have you seen in IITs a similar scenario or?
It's always a challenge. Even within the electrical department, the communications faculty would not interact with the microelectronics
Hmm.
faculty. The power people, power electronics people don't work with the microelectronics people. So we have created lots of these artificial boundaries,
Hmm.
and then we tend to confine ourselves to those small kind of places where we work.
Right.
And I benefited by interacting with people who are totally outside my discipline.
Yes.
So I wanted to, I wanted everyone else
Hmm.
to do the same. When I became director at IIT Delhi, so we started a program called Faculty Interdisciplinary Research Program.
Okay.
And under that program, we told faculty that if you collaborate with someone who is outside of your discipline,
Hmm.
somebody with whom you have never really interacted much,
Hmm.
for example, a mechanical engineer working with a biologist, an electrical engineer working with a chemistry faculty member. So these sort of collaborations, we said, if you work or find such collaborators and write a coherent proposal,
Hmm.
what you would like to do with each other, institute will give you a seed grant. So we
Awesome.
started giving seed grants to faculty who come up with these interdisciplinary kind of topics. The only condition we put was after 2 years of working together
Hmm.
with the funding that institute would provide, you need to go out and write proposals to external agencies like
Ah.
industry,
Hmm.
Department of Science and
Right.
Technology, or any other agency. Because
Hmm.
we thought, no, we can fund to some extent,
Yes.
but
Yes.
if money doesn't come back to
Right.
the institute through all this sponsored research, we won't be able to sustain that sort of initiatives.
Right.
We initiated many such activities within the institute, and also we extended this to institutions outside, like All India Institute of Medical Sciences and RCB, and we worked with we signed one-on-one kind of MOUs with at least 10 other institutions in
Hmm.
Delhi, and so we started. They fund their faculty, we fund our faculty,
Right.
and if it is within that between two departments in IIT, then we fund both the faculty. So
Hmm.
we invested quite a bit in that effort, and that's also one of the reasons why IIT Delhi research budgets, from external projects used to be about 70 crores, 80 crores,
Hmm.
100 crores kind of a budget per year, and
Right.
we touched in one year almost like 400 crores
Hmm.
of budget. It happened because people
Right.
started interacting with each other and started to get into interesting areas, and then wrote proposals and
Hmm.
got increased funding for the institute. I think that was a very successful program.
Right. Right.
We ran for almost for now it's running at IIT Delhi still,
Hmm.
and which is helping us quite a bit in having faculty work with each other from very diverse kind of domains.
Right. And so speaking of industry collaboration specifically, so you have like 13 of your 49 patents or so have been licensed to industries for commercialization. So I believe that is really amazing, and people should take example from you that. So one thing I was reading the statistics of the developed nations versus of India. So kind of the research funding that comes from in India is majorly the majority, around 53 or 55% of it comes from government, and the but in developed nations the majority, about like 70% of it, comes from the business sector. So has this been is this scenario been changing with time, or what are the leading institutes that are taking step in this direction?
At IIT Delhi, it was the same. All our institutions, there is every faculty member gets into a certain comfort zone and then stays there.
Hmm.
So the entire goal, for many of us who are heads of institutions, is to bring the faculty members out of their comfort zones, connect them with other researchers, with whom they can collaborate and get into newer areas
Hmm.
and do exciting things. So that's what is required. And I've always believed that to we need to instead of just advising people to do that, we need to put our money where the mouth is. That's how that's where the seed grant kind of a scheme
Hmm.
will always be helpful. For example, one thing which we very consciously did at IIT Delhi was, we looked at how do you pick up problems in an academic institute. If you have a PhD student who joined you, or you want to start a research area, the first thing is, you start doing a literature review, go to library, read, certain number of papers, and find some gaps in that research, and then take on, that kind of research and fill up those gaps in the form of writing more papers. And so most of our problems, I notice, do originate from the library, and they go back to library because you find a gap, you write a paper, and that paper goes back to a journal and then remains in the library. So that is how most of the research in academic institutions is currently being done. So one thing we started looking at is, can we change that a little bit? So how do you change that? One way is, can you pick up problems by observing issues in the society? So now, there is a farmer's problem. Now, if somebody comes and explains to you what are the kinds of technologies farmers are looking for, and then there are many good people in the IIT system who can actually develop those solutions. And so one of the things we did was to connect with society better, and that is where we activated our humanities and social sciences department. We started a grand challenge initiative where humanities faculty pose problems to engineering and science faculty, and
Okay.
together they form a team and start working with each other.
Great.
And we also started connecting with industry better. We started an industry day at IIT Delhi during
Oh.
my time, where we said industries can walk in on that day into IIT, and they can go to any laboratory, talk to any faculty member. We arrange for them the thematic presentations of the research that is happening at IIT Delhi, and we started doing it year after year. And by the third time we conducted, we could see almost 400 industries coming and listening to faculty members on that day, which also led to a lot of new collaborations with the faculty members. We did a kind of a survey, and almost 70 faculty who were collaborating with industries before. That number went up to almost like 350 collaborations or so. So we saw a 4 times or 5 times increase in the number of collaborations faculty were having with the industries. And so we also initiated a professor of practice positions, where we said leading industry experts can come and work with us as professors of practice or as adjunct professors of practice. So that way, they brought with them a lot of contacts, connections, and
Right.
problem statements and all of that. It's also one thing
Right.
that we did. So we did multiple sessions. We also connected with strategic agencies more closely, like DRDO, ISRO. We started a ISRO cell. We also started a joint advanced technology center jointly with DRDO. And now, after 3 years of initiating that activity, now we have almost like 270 crore worth projects sponsored by DRDO, involving about 100 faculty members at IIT Delhi.
Awesome.
Now, because of those collaborations with DRDO, there are many technologies now which are coming into market. In fact, one of them is a bulletproof vest. Very soon there will be a major announcement,
Great.
jointly with DRDO, or with IIT Delhi, and where we have shown that you can reduce the weight by at least 30%, up to 30% as compared to what the soldiers are currently wearing. And now we were able to identify an industry partner and transfer the technology to them. The technology has been certified by a DRDO lab, for all using the standard processes. So a lot of such things started happening. So I think
Right.
the point is, as long as we pick problems from libraries, our
Yeah.
impact will only be seen in terms of publications and all of that.
Right.
But the moment we start picking problems from the society, from the industry connects, and from the strategic agencies point of view, then many of these technologies that we develop, much of the research that we conduct, all of that will actually become visible in the
Right.
society.
Right.
And that's one thing which we started to do at IIT Delhi very consciously through multiple initiatives. Even with ISRO, for example, we started about 3 years ago an ISRO cell at IIT Delhi, and that ISRO cell is also now connecting our faculty with the ISRO. And then there are many faculty members now working on projects which are problem statements which are defined by ISRO. So to me, the bottom line is, the societal problems need to become projects for us. I
Right.
think when societal problems become projects, then you start seeing these institutions, becoming visible in the society. People
Right.
will then talk about, IIT Delhi solved this problem, and
Hmm.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that is one transformation we could bring about at IIT Delhi. I think the results of that will be visible pretty soon.
Hmm. Right. So, taking this forward, so since IIT Delhi already was having such a huge resources, so what would you like to advise to directors or HODs of tier 3, tier 4 colleges who don't have that kind of resources or that kind of facilities in their laboratories, but they want to, because there is also the system of publish or perish, and that is also to some extent they have, because the university also has to see the financial aspect. If the faculty is not performing, they have to evaluate the faculty on some grounds. And publishing a research paper from the library is, I would say, more easier as compared to doing a actual product based research work, which will help eventually the society. So how, what were the issues, these kind of issues that you faced, and how you came across, how you solve these issues?
In the not everything requires major resources. I think which is one thing which is required. Recently, when I was visiting one such institution in South India, all that I told them is, help faculty to find the right set of problems. For example, in that city there was also an agricultural university next door,
Hmm.
but these faculty never really had any interactions with the agricultural faculty.
Okay.
I told them, now you encourage your faculty to go and talk to, what these agricultural scientists are doing,
Hmm.
and I can tell you, you can find some very interesting problems, by working with such people. I always believed in this, unlike minds kind of a concept.
Hmm.
So when you work with people, who are like very unlike like you, I mean, very
Yeah.
unlike in with respect to, disciplinary training. They might have completely different disciplinary kind of training, or they might have completely different attitudes. The industry people, for example, so that's also one kind of an unlike mind. So whether it is disciplines or attitudes or even cultures, people have different cultures coming from different backgrounds,
Right.
or even internationalization, is also another aspect there. So I call, the innovation will happen, or the you become an idea kind of a factory
Hmm.
when you follow this unlike minds kind of a concept. I think our institutions need to become a little bit heterogeneous. Every day if I
Hmm.
get up in the morning and interact with the same electrical engineers,
Right.
nothing is going to change, despite me working with them for years kind of a thing.
Hmm.
But if I, come out of that comfort zone, start interacting with agricultural scientists, start interacting with medical doctors, start interacting with the DRDO laboratories,
Hmm.
or the ISRO scientists, or the Indian Council for Agricultural Research, then new ideas will come. And everybody is good at some core discipline.
Right.
Now, if you can apply those principles, that understanding that you have to diverse set of problems, somewhere something can click. Somewhere, interesting things will happen, and that is how, great things can actually come about. And I think that is what, that doesn't require, too much of money. If for example, if an engineering faculty member, works with an agricultural scientist and writes a good proposal, that is very focused on solving a problem,
Hmm.
there are enough agencies which will fund such a research. Very
Okay.
often what happens is people don't submit, those quality kind of proposals. Everybody is saying, doing the same thing, saying the same thing,
Hmm.
writing a similar kind of proposals, and
Hmm.
then, obviously they all get rejected, and then there are no resources to, do anything great, or any such
Hmm.
activity. So I think that is the issue. To me,
Hmm.
finding the right problem is more than half the problem. I think once
Hmm.
you identify the right kind of a problem, I think people will come together, and people will receive funding, and a lot of good things can happen. I think for
Right.
that, that those connections are important. Establishing those networks is
Hmm.
important, and I think that is where this silo kind of an approach, doesn't work. And even in these cases, if I want to solve a problem, that the farmers are facing, the projects become, inherently interdisciplinary. You
Right.
cannot solve those problems with just my electron devices kind of a background. I need to
Hmm.
now interact with people, because the moment you are taking that societal problem, you need multiple disciplines to come together
Yes.
very naturally, and that is how the, interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary kind of research activities, get seeded in our institutions, and eventually over a period of time, the solutions will be found and all of that. So I think, like I said, the choosing the societal problems as projects is one very important aspect which is missing in our academic institutions. For example, in the US, when I was working there, almost every week somebody or the other comes and poses a problem to the faculty member, and they say, I'm running this process, I'm finding this weird behavior in my device, or my devices are not working, there is a yield problem. So can you analyze this and solve it for me? That is how the problems originate, and that is when they give funding to that faculty member, and the faculty member takes students and tries to understand what is happening and provide a solution. So most of the problems in good universities there, basically come from people coming and posing
Right.
the problem to a faculty member.
Right.
It doesn't happen all that much, and now it's beginning to happen. Thankfully at IIT Delhi, the
Yes.
DRDO is now posing us right set of problems. ISRO
Great.
is doing that now because of our connections with AIMS doctors, or Indian Institute of Medical Sciences. Many doctors now come to IIT Delhi and say, "I am facing this problem, and can you help me solve it?" Kind of a thing. I think so those
Great.
connections we have established now. I
Right.
think people are now working on the right kind of problems. I think they're all good people. I think once they start working on the right kind of problems, the results will be visible pretty soon. So
Right.
I'm confident. In fact, we have also initiated a scheme which encourages faculty entrepreneurship. So we have a scheme for that. We
Yeah.
actually fund the faculty to become entrepreneurs. The idea is, you work with them, work on the right kind of problems, and then you use these funds that institute provides so that you can start a company, a startup, and then
Yes.
put the technology out into the market. So
Right.
you don't have to always wait for a big industry to come, look at your solution, take your technology, and then put it out into market. Now, these days you can also do that through the startup kind of a route, and that is now beginning to happen. In some departments at IIT Delhi, every fifth faculty member has a startup. And
Awesome.
so that is a change that is beginning to happen now. And even during the COVID time, many of these startups, and the faculty members behind them, they work very hard to put out so many COVID-related technologies into the market, whether it is a low-cost RT-PCR kit or a rapid antigen kit or the very high-quality masks with all those antimicrobial, antiviral kind of coatings. All of those things happen because of these faculty members having their own startups and quickly finding a solution and using the startup to launch that product and all that. So a lot of great things happened. In fact, the technologies developed at IIT Delhi during the COVID, reached almost like how many people? More than 1.5 million people, and those sort of things have happened because of faculty members turning into entrepreneurs, and then putting technologies into the market using the ecosystem that is available for the startup. And those things
Right.
will happen only when you pick up the right kind of problems.
So I will come to this startup in a bit, but before I want to understand is what is so the leadership matters a lot, and so you implemented it beautifully at IIT Delhi. So why is it not happening at other places like low tier colleges or universities? Is it that the leadership doesn't want that, or they're not interested, or they don't have that vision kind of thing? So what is lacking in them so that they can improve on?
I personally think it's the leadership problem. In India, there is a crisis when it comes to leadership. One of the problems also arises because of the way we are, selecting these leaders. There's a lot of interference at every level. I think that's one of the reasons. And we find many leaders who are all just tinkering with the system. The things are running fine, and your job is to, help ensure that things will be the same. Holding fort as long as you are there in that position, as they say. And I think that's a kind of a thing. These bold ideas and motivating faculty, to be a leader. You also should have done something like that. If I haven't done anything myself and start preaching faculty, you will never be able to inspire anyone with your words. I have started two companies before coming
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Both of them are deep technology companies. Both of them have products in the market, and I have written, as many papers as any good researcher anywhere in the world. I have done all of that myself. So when I say that to a faculty member, they also see that here is somebody who has done something similar and shown that it all can be done from our institutions.
Hmm.
So I think they will also take you seriously. And also there are too many leaders who also preach in this country, without having programs to back it up. Now, for example, I can keep telling faculty, do multidisciplinary research,
Hmm.
do interdisciplinary research, but nothing happens. I think we have been doing it since the time of independence, telling our faculty to
Right.
do all of that. Why hasn't it happened?
Hmm.
Why would somebody actually do that?
Hmm.
So I figured it out that only if you start a scheme,
Hmm.
you give a little bit of incentive to people in terms of some seed funds, then there were hundreds of proposals.
Hmm.
So the moment we said, here is an FIRP scheme, now you can submit proposals, we started receiving huge number of proposals. The
Great.
moment, we said, no, we have also been telling faculty to become entrepreneurs, but you are all in your comfort zone. What is the trigger for you
Hmm.
to come out of that comfort zone and do something which you are not very comfortable with? I think again some kind of a seed grant, a sort of a scheme, some incentives. We said here is a FIRE program, Faculty Innovation and Research Driven Entrepreneurship. That's what FIRE stands for. Here is a FIRE program. You can put up a proposal, and we will decide, and we will give you, the seed grant for you to start your company.
Hmm.
The moment you do that, again so many people applied for that, and then they got benefited from it. The moment you have a scheme, the good thing that happens is it incentivizes people to come out of their comfort
Right.
zones and start doing something new. And
Right.
also you can measure it. You can measure the success of it. If I started a file program, if nobody applied for that,
Hmm.
then I know that something is wrong with the program.
Right.
You go back and talk to your faculty and find out why it is not clicking and
Hmm.
everything. And then you figure it out what the problems are, you modify, you launch it. First year there are three proposals. Then you say, how can I make it 100 proposals?
Hmm.
Then you put a roadmap, you talk to people, you bring awareness, and then slowly one adds to other. You can measure your outcomes,
Hmm.
and if outcomes are not meeting your expectations, now then you can modify the schemes and make it better than what it was earlier.
Hmm.
So that is what is important. I think a leadership is not about just preaching kind of a thing. Everybody knows what needs to be done. A leader's role is mostly to generate resources, and for generating resources, you have to have a vision. Nobody will give you money. If I went to DRDO and said, give me money, they wouldn't have given me
Hmm.
money. But
Right.
we went with a proposal. We said, let's create this joint advanced technology center.
Hmm.
All this research is currently happening at IIT Delhi. And if you can support us in this way, all these things
Hmm.
can happen. Then DRDO got excited, and then they gave that funding, and then so many people came forward. We did all of that. So I think the leader's role, in my opinion, is generate, first of all, solve the problem of bringing people together. I
Hmm.
think if you solve that problem of bringing people together and make them work with each other, I think they will solve many of the other problems. So once you have figured it out, then posing the right kind of problems to them
Hmm.
and provide the right set of resources for them.
Right.
I think where a top-down kind of a
Hmm.
planning is required,
Right.
and that's what is required. Otherwise, I can go to the office in the morning, sign some files, go back in the evening. You have a position which is guaranteed for certain period of time. That is how most of the leadership currently functioning, and which is not helping us. I think
Right.
yeah, once in a while, great things happen, and I think that is where many things come together. I think that
Right.
is when all the right things happen. But I think it needs to happen now in almost all of our
Mhm.
institutions.
Right. So is DST taking any steps? Because I have seen that DBT is doing amazing through Byrac, and recently they have done a collaboration with TIE. So, they are, and it's also the initiative of India Bioscience. So, what I have seen is the biology sector. Even there is a lot of awareness between biologists in India, and I don't see that in physicists or chemists. Like the kind of initiatives that the kind of biology field takes is has been great. So why do you think is this kind of imbalance between these fields? Why not like physicists or chemists or mathematicians are taking such initiatives? And so similarly, the thing that you mentioned, to add to this, is that say IIT Delhi took this initiative at a local level. So can DST also is taking steps to form this kind of interdisciplinarity or entrepreneurship between faculty or multidisciplinarity projects?
I think they can do that. Unfortunately, what has happened is even the DST, the committees which evaluate are also based on the disciplines.
Hmm.
For example, if you are working on a bio kind of a problem, as an electrical engineer, you will not know whether I should go to that bio committee or to the double E committee.
Hmm.
Double E committee will think there is, not too much of double E in that. The bio committee will think, it is not too much of bio in that. And sometimes such initiatives, such projects fall through the cracks. I think we need to fund ideas. We don't have to
Yeah.
fund a discipline or anything.
True.
To me, it's all about funding ideas,
Hmm.
and I also always believe that when you are funding ideas, it should not matter whether you are coming from a government institution, private institution, startup, industry. It should not matter at all. You are funding an idea. If
Hmm.
you like that idea, and if you think the team which is proposing that is capable of executing it, I think that should be a sufficient reason for you to support them. And today there are too many restrictions on private, government, all of that kind of thing. I think that we need to move away from.
Hmm.
And I think this whole funding model in India in a way is flawed. If you want your researchers to work on the real world problems, right? How do you make it happen? I mean, DST doesn't have any problems of its own.
Hmm.
DST is the Ministry of Science and Technology, so they don't know what the agricultural problems are. They don't know what the healthcare problems are, and so that is the kind of a thing which the ministries will know. The
Hmm.
Ministry of Health, for example,
Right.
Ministry of Agriculture. I think they are the ones which need to be connecting with academic
Hmm.
institutions more and more.
Hmm.
And but that in this country is pretty challenging because
Hmm.
most of these ministries don't have any regular or structured funding schemes to interact with the academicians. Some secretary, a good secretary, might have launched some program,
Hmm.
but after 2 years, when the secretary leaves,
Yeah.
that program also dies down. So as a result, but these ministries know the grassroots problems, and if they can pose those problems to
Hmm.
researchers along with the funding, then you would they know what is expected. So therefore, some great things can happen. Today, you imagine your own problem. For example, I sitting in my room, I will imagine a problem. I go to DST
Hmm.
with that project proposal, and other similar academics like me sit across a table and evaluate that proposal and fund me.
Hmm.
But that is not necessarily the problem that is required in the society. So I always call that most of the research that we do in academia is a solution looking for a problem. So
Hmm.
whereas what we require is solution to a problem,
Hmm.
and the solution to a problem can only happen when other ministries which are connected to the grassroots kind of issues, they start to pool in some resources into a fund, and they start interacting with
Hmm.
academia, engaged academia, and pose the right kind of problem. That is when great things can happen. For
Hmm.
example, during my time, we interacted with NHAI, the National Highway Authority of India, and they are, for example, generating huge amounts of data, through all the tolls and all of
Hmm.
that with the implementation of those digital kind of services. And then what do you do with all the data? So we started a center of excellence here with some AI researchers and with the civil engineering researchers, and try to connect with them and see what more you can do with the data that they are generating in terms of transport patterns, safety, and lots of other things. So that's one major activity which is currently ongoing at IIT Delhi. But that sort of a project could not have been done by the
Hmm.
Department of Science and Technology. It can only be done by an organization like NHAI, and that is what needs to happen more and more in this country. So
Right.
unless these allied ministries interact with academic institutions
Hmm.
and our top talent, I think our research will never find that relevance.
Hmm.
So for that relevance to come into the entire scientific ecosystem, the ministries, other than not only the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Science and Technology,
Hmm.
but every other ministry needs to engage with the academia. So as part of the new education policy, everybody is talking about that NRF, the National Research Foundation,
Hmm.
where they are saying every ministry will allocate a part of their budget for
Okay.
NRI, and
Hmm.
then they will provide funds and also the problems.
Hmm.
Hopefully, that will solve some of that. But we need to implement these schemes. I think,
Okay.
if you do those corrections at that fundamental level, I think there is a lot of talent in academia in
Hmm.
this country. And my biggest complaint has always been that we are not utilizing this talent, and all this
Hmm.
talent is not being properly directed, and not being put to solve any problems. And there is no purpose in many cases.
Hmm.
It's all about taking some funding and writing some papers. I think we need to go above that now. And
So I feel that a PSA office should play an important role in this. So what do you think? Are they doing the proper work and talking to institutional heads and communicating it to the government properly?
no, no, of course, everybody is doing their job. I think they're all good people with good intentions, and a lot of good things are happening. But for anybody in this country to make two ministries to talk to each other is not going to be easy. So it never is an easy thing to have multiple ministries to fund a research. In fact, the Ministry of Education, there was a program called Imprint, the
Okay.
Impacting Research, Innovation, and Technology kind of a thing. That Imprint program in 2016 was launched by the Ministry of Education, and that launch had, I also attended the launch. Honorable Prime Minister of the country, President of India, and the Education Minister, all the three of them launched that 1,000 crore imprint initiative.
Okay.
Under the imprint initiative, you work on a problem which is with the help of that ministry, which is anchored for that particular kind of a research. You receive funding, so you write a project proposal which has relevance for a particular problem, and they made that particular ministry which has interest in the solution to actually fund that research. So there were over, or almost every ministry was a partner in that initiative, the imprint initiative.
Okay.
It worked very well for a couple of years, 2 3 times, but now secretaries have moved, the ministers have changed. Now it has gone into a cold shell. But when it functioned, the imprint was such a great program. I mean, it was very nice to see so many secretaries of so many ministries coming together and funding that research. But that happened because at that time the minister and the secretary were all aligned to do that. But such programs need to sustain. Such programs need to be done in a for a longer period. For the real results to become visible. So I think
Right.
that's what is required. And like I said, I think it's a way we fund research, which is the challenge right now. It's not about the talent or anything. That is all there already. But I think orienting this resource that is available in the academia towards solving the right kind of problems. And once you develop a solution, how do you take it to the society? That is again through a startup route where you need to fund startups,
Right.
or an industry connect where you need to bring the industries and encourage them and incentivize them to take those problems and take it to the society. So I think those connections also we need to establish. So I always say that R&D now needs to be the relevance and delivery. So you need to you make your research relevant, and you also, once you find a solution, you need to be able to deliver it
Right.
either through a startup route or through an interaction with the industry. So
Right.
that is
Right.
what's very important. Now, if we can solve these relevance and delivery kind of issues, I think many problems that you see today, can be actually addressed by the academic.
Right. So, according to you, where India stands or how far it is for to India to develop a kind of an organization like MIT Media Lab?
Those things can be done. India, if you look at the research, we are ranked third in the world. So we only come behind, China, US, and India. But when you look at innovation, I think our rank is some 47 or something.
Okay.
So there is actually no need for us to be so much behind innovation, but while being so
Yeah.
good to research. I think
Right.
that decision is only because we are not solving the right kind of problems. We are not choosing the
Right.
right kind of problems.
Right.
I think creation of a media labs kind of a thing, the talent is there. I think the problem is with these structural issues. I am hoping that if NRF takes off the way it is all written in the NEP document, I think if that is implemented in the right spirit, I think that can do many of the things that
Hmm.
that Media Labs is doing, and I'm not worried about the talent pool in the country. I think I
Right,
have
right.
seen some of the finest brains, but working on a problem which is like 10-year-old kind of
Ah,
thing.
true, true, true,
That is what needs to change in the country. So otherwise, we can create that with those structural changes.
true. Okay, so you have co-authored 13 books. So how was your writing journey, and any advice you would like to give to young faculty who wish to write their first one?
These are chapters in the books. I
Okay.
haven't had, I should be doing it sometime, but
Okay.
I have not written a complete book myself. So
Okay.
very often people invite me to write book chapters
Okay.
in the books that they are editing, and
Okay.
I usually oblige them. So that is how I have
Hmm.
done that. But I think, I have been pretty good when it comes to publications.
Hmm.
I have close to 500
Hmm.
publications in top journals and conferences, and I think that part of it, thanks to my students and the my postdocs and all of us work together
All right.
to write a paper. So
Right. Cool. And during your time, IIT Delhi received Institution of Eminence status in 2018. So, would you like to share your experience in that, and what was some behind the scenes? What was the process behind that?
so that was a massive effort at IIT Delhi. In the first lot, over 100 institutions applied for the IOE status,
Okay.
and only three in government institutions were selected. Of course,
Hmm.
there were some other private institutes, but only three government institutes got selected: IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, and IISc Bangalore. And for that, our proposal were almost like 1,000 pages,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
almost every faculty member in the institute contributed to that. But
Awesome.
when so many people are contributing,
Uh,
it can become very,
yeah.
what do we call it, scattered and
Yes. Yes.
not very focused. And that was the issue that we had to deal with. So we had a big vision, and then whatever people brought in, we tried to stitch all of that together
Hmm.
to provide a coherent kind of a picture of where we want to be with the IOE and all that.
Hmm.
There were, I thought we did very well. I mean, there were issues with the implementation and all of
Hmm.
that, which is a different thing. But I thought we did a great job in presenting that, in getting it approved, in even receiving the
Hmm.
initial grants and all that.
Hmm.
I think it has made a huge difference to
Hmm.
IIT Delhi.
So I think this would be a quite practical and obvious question. So I would like to ask to you. So you prepared. You said that 1,000 page proposal. Did anyone actually read through all the 1,000 pages at the end?
I am not sure, but there was a presentation which was a condensed version of whatever is there
Okay.
in the proposal, and there was a review committee. I'm hoping that the review committee must have read. But in the institute, we all, of course, made a presentation
Hmm.
out of that proposal, and that presentation we made at multiple places. It
Hmm.
was very well appreciated, and
Great.
so that presented the big picture
Hmm.
of where we want to see IIT Delhi to be
Right.
in due course of time. So
Right. So, can you share some your best and some good or bad moments as a director at IIT?
I don't say, the COVID, of course, was a disaster. I mean,
Hmm.
when everything was going very well, I was fortunate that I received cooperation from everybody in the institute. As a director, I never had, any issues here. Everything was pretty smooth for me, and there was a lot of cooperation from all quarters. So we were able to, if we started 10 new academic units, either by closing some, opening some new ones. I think it could not have been done without everybody
Hmm.
being taken along. So that part we did very well, and we even recruited over 230 faculty members. That again would not have happened if departments, did not
Right.
cooperate and do all of that. So a lot of things we could achieve. It was all a very positive experience, and everything was going very well. And then the COVID came in, and but we also utilized COVID to the institute's benefit. We used COVID to launch an e-Vidya initiative, an online certificate program. Until that time, IIT was not giving any certificates for online programs. So we started an e-Vidya initiative. Under that, we started giving certificates after a 6-month online program, and that program took off. I mean, in a year of its launch, we were able to reach almost like 3,500 people, for the certificate programs, and they were all paying, market sort of a fee to take those programs. So that also became an additional revenue for the institute, and it scaled up pretty fast, and many faculty started participating in these initiatives. So I think, though COVID, and also we said while closing down the COVID, we said any faculty member, a group of students who wish to work on COVID related technologies can stay back and work on and do research to address this issue, whether it is development of new masks or diagnostic kits or treatment related activities. We said labs will be kept open for them, and many groups stayed back and the students stayed back, and within 6 months of doing so, we were able to put out quite a few technologies into the market. We had like 19 license deals on COVID, during the peak of COVID, and we
Great.
had like 13 patents filed on COVID, 19 licensing deals we signed with
Awesome.
industries and other people. I think that all happened because of otherwise we could have just closed down the institute, and all of us could have
Right.
started during COVID,
Right.
but we could not do that. I think I'm very happy that some of these initiatives, and we also told faculty that you don't have to look for funding or anything. If you are working on a COVID related problem, institute will give you the seed grant, whatever money you
Awesome.
require. So we provided funds to the faculty and students, kept the labs open, kept the hostels open for those students even during the peak COVID time,
Great.
and that resulted in a lot of good things that have come out of IIT Delhi. I think
Great.
overall, when I look back, I don't think I can say I had any negative experiences or anything, but there were, in a large institute, what happens is any decision making needs to go through
Yeah.
multiple committees, and no
Right.
committee is less than 100 faculty members. So
Oh.
whether it is a low internal committee or the Senate,
Okay.
which have like 225 faculty members. I think to take everybody along and to be able to decide on one particular thing, when everybody has different points of view,
Right.
that has never been easy. That will never be easy.
Right.
With the
True.
way the governance structures have been designed in our systems, and because of that, that also many a time, many directors tend to be very incremental in their impact. Cannot take any path-breaking kind of decision, because if I want to close a center,
Right.
and for 30 years, we were not able to close down certain things. And the last center we opened in the institute was some 40 years ago. And but that was all because of these issues of getting these decisions, taken through all these committees, and take come to the right kind of a conclusion. So that was a problem, challenge for any director. So people kept on postponing many of these issues, and so it was all business as usual kind of a thing. But when we wanted to, start a new department of material science and engineering, the discussions for that were going on for 30 years. Or when we wanted to close down couple of centers which everybody was saying non-performing, and because they were non-performing, there was a kind of a negative bias towards all the centers. And anytime you want to start a new center, and people said, but no, but there are centers which are not working very well. So
Right.
we not start any new centers because of non-functional centers.
True.
So we had to close them down. We had to convert them into something else. And once we were able to demonstrate that through actions, I think we were able to do many more things.
Right.
Which others many thought were not possible in the system. It just opened up the minds, and many were now contemplating newer things because they realized that all this can be done. Until that time, the thinking was it cannot be done kind of thing.
Right.
Once we demonstrated that once or twice, then there were so many good proposals from the teams and departments and centers, for starting new activities, new initiatives, and one led to other. And now I think it was a very satisfying kind of a 6 years for me.
So how you cracked that bureaucracy problem, and so is there a way around it? Can that be solved?
I think people need to trust you. I think that trust is something which is very important. And I always say that a leader has to be generous, and also needs to be seen as selfless. If people saw that there is some inherent benefit for me in doing something, I think somebody will pick it up. I think it's not that now you can close your eyes thinking that everybody will not see that, but it doesn't work that way. So,
Right.
so where it is a selfless kind of a thing, there was nothing in it for me. I did not even actually. I made it very clear 2 years before my term ended, saying that I am not going to seek a second term. So therefore, if I
Okay.
am doing something, and if you thought that I am doing all this to impress somebody in the ministry and for a second term, I said I am not even a candidate for a second term. I am not even applying for a second term. I will be stepping down once my term ends. And so I said, there is nothing in it for me. So that whatever I do, it will all be in the institute interest, and nothing will be done as a top-down kind of a thing. It has to be, passed through all the processes that exist in the system, and the processes sometimes take time. It's not any decision that you take, by to get it approved, it takes at least 6 months minimum. So you need to have that patience. So I think, to me, the three P's that I say are important for any leader is: one is passion. People need to see you as a passionate person, and you need patience. If you are impatient and I want to do that overnight, it won't happen. You are in a democracy. Taking everybody along is very important. The third thing is the perseverance. If
Right.
you might want to do that, you have patience, but there will always be people who will come up with some objections. So now having that patience to address that, to counter that, all of that takes a little bit of a knack. And I think that passion, patience, and perseverance, these you need in abundant measure to get anything done in our system. And if you take any shortcuts anywhere, it might work that time, but it will backfire the next
Right.
time. And then you build a ill will among the people, that somebody is pushing things through without following a proper process. Then you build resistance in the system, and I think after that it becomes very difficult. So we have not bypassed any process anywhere. Whatever we did, we followed the process. If it took 6 months, it took 6 months. It was okay. But we, whatever new things we did, we had to let it go through the system and have take everybody's views into account, and finally get things done.
Great. So a few rapid fire questions. So, how were you as a child? So, what comes first to you? Whatever comes to your mind, just say it loud.
I was sincere. I was probably innocent. I was studious. Yeah. So I was not very naughty or anything, but I was always a good child as well.
Okay. So, so when you were in school, so maybe when the teacher asked you, what would you become when you grow up? So, what was your answer most of the times?
No idea. I was totally blank. But I come from a family where education was the only thing we knew. I think
Okay.
getting a degree and finding a job, a government job, was all what we aspired for. We had no other intention. So you study well, you study hard to find a job. I think to find a good government job. In those days, even private jobs were not too many, and nobody wanted private jobs. So you work hard to find a government job. So that's
Right.
how I started. And but then things changed for me midway.
Right. So, who has been your role model for the most of the part of your life?
There are different people in different periods, but I don't believe, I like different qualities in different people,
Hmm.
but I think I don't, you know, hero worship or
Right.
do any worshipping any person. Everybody has their flaws, everybody has some strong points. And I have multiple role models for multiple things. It's difficult to
Right.
name one person who has all the qualities,
Right.
but my motivation in life is also to be better version of myself.
Right.
I think if I am so and so today, I want to be better than this, year from now, and whatever it takes to become that better version of yourself is what I would always do. So, for example, if I am not reading enough, if I am not improving something, no, I feel that I'm not doing a justice to myself, and I make it a point to go and read something or do something. And so my goal is always to become a better version of myself.
Right. So, upon talking about reading, so what non-academic books you read, like be it fiction, non-fiction?
I do multiple things. People also give me many books. For example, today these days I am reading Light from Many Lamps, a treasury of inspiration.
Okay.
And I also had, there are multiple things I am reading. no shadow of a doubt. There is another book that I am reading. So
Nice.
I don't read too many of these fiction types, the story types. I think to me, reading a book would mean, I need to learn something from
Right,
that.
right, right.
Just for entertainment, I don't think I would spend days to read a book. I don't know when I last read a novel kind of a thing, but I think to me, reading is to improve myself and understand something, and
Right.
that's how I look at reading. So, not for an entertainment. For entertainment, I go and watch movies, and
Okay.
but when I'm reading something, it's usually non-fiction types.
So, what is the last movie that you watched?
Oh, what is the last movie that I watched? I really don't remember. It was not such a great movie. I was just complaining to someone in the lunch club yesterday only that I don't even remember when I watched a good movie, good Hindi movie, and I was complaining that there is too much of inbreeding in that industry that they have stopped making good movies. I think the lack of fresh talent, coming into that at regular intervals, is hurting that industry more than ever. And Netflix these days, has
Right.
some
Yeah.
good sort of programs. I think I what did the last movie? I mean, I was in fact giving that example of a Dangal kind of a movie or a Three Idiots kind of a movie or those sort of movies. I don't know. In the last few years, I have not seen anything of that.
Right. Okay. So, what are your general hobbies?
I do many things. Reading, of course, whenever I am traveling, I always have a book with me in my bag. But these days I'm also I want to I just want time to think. Very often, which I now find missing, is I'm always doing something, either talking to somebody or reading something or watching something. I don't get time to just think about some aspects. So very often, now these days I'm feeling that urge to just do nothing, just sit and think. That I think I need to start practicing now. We call it meditation. I don't even call it meditation. I just want to come up with something original. Now that I am now wearing this professor hat, and I am also very seriously looking at what activities do I want to start as a researcher.
Okay.
And so there I am now thinking of some very interesting problems which no one has worked before. And so I think if you ask me today, I would like to just do nothing, just think. With
Right.
all the inputs that I have, I would like to think. And travel, I also like traveling and reading, watching movies. So I think like anybody else.
So, do you feel that researchers or academicians get comparatively less time as compared to business people or people in job to pursue their hobbies or extra activities?
I think it depends on the individual. I personally think even if I become a kindergarten, a KG teacher, I would be as busy. So I think people like me, we generate work for ourselves. Otherwise, you can be director of an institute and be totally free. Nobody asks you anything. And I know many people who have so much of time. But,
Okay.
but you make me a KG teacher, I will become as busy. So I think it
Great.
is more personality driven, and we're always looking at what next, what more can you do,
Right.
and once you start generating work for yourself, I think you can do that in every job. And I think finding free time and all of that is more of a personality driven thing rather than the job driven kind.
Okay. So, second last question. What is that one life lesson that you want to share with the world?
I think I have always kept an open mind. If I decided to do one single thing, I don't think I would have been here today. And I have also seen multiple failures. It is not that you only see the successes and think that everything has been so good. But all those failures at that time were heartbreaking. That time I felt the end of the world, and I was in such a great
Right.
pain. But now when I look back, I am so happy that certain things did not work out, the way I wanted. If they had worked out the way I wanted, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
been
True.
today, in this position. So I think all those failures now I see as stepping stones for something better. At that time, I did not know that, so I felt very bad about it. But now I realize that every failure that I had in my career or in my life, actually helped me, in as good a measure as successes I had. So failures and successes both become stepping stones. I think that is one thing that people need to realize. What happens very often is when somebody sees that failure, then they give up everything and get into that depression sort of a thing, and that complicates things for them and for everybody around them over a period of time.
Great.
So I'm happy that I handled those failures very well, and many of those failures now actually are part of my success. So I think that is a very valuable lesson. I learned whenever I think about how my career shaped up and all of that.
Great. So, last question, which every student would want to ask to an IIT director is, so someone who is preparing for JEE. So, can there be a different model to evaluate students?
Very difficult. I think I have often posted about this, and the issue is a supply and demand situation. When you have 15,000 seats and 1 million children competing for that, there is no other way. But there is no better way than how we are selecting students today. And the process has to be objective because you are selecting 15,000 out of 1 million students. If it is not objective, you suddenly ask people to write a essay and you start to
Right.
evaluate the essay and start admitting people, then you can err. I mean, there's no guarantee that you can be truthful and objective in
Right.
your evaluation. So it has to be an objective process, and it has to be completely transparent, right? You should be able to know, when whether you can get in or not get in based on the marks that you have obtained. I think so that is a transparency. Nobody needs to, there are no surprises in the selection
Great.
process. There are no surprises. So that is the transparency that you have. And the question papers obviously will become difficult because the question papers will become, these exams have become a way to eliminate people, not to select
Right.
people. Because
True.
in that ratio of the number of seats available to, number of people taking them. So this is the natural process. I think there is no better way right now. The solution to all of that is to expand the IIT system. I've always complained that all 23 IITs today have about 1 lakh students, 100,000 students. You go to one large university in the
Right.
US,
Yeah.
they will have 100,000 students.
Yeah. Yeah.
IIT system can expand. I just don't understand why we are not expanding the IIT system. So IIT system has the capability to expand by at least 10x. From 1 lakh, it should go to 1 million students, must be able to connect with IITs and get a degree or certificate or something from them. I think that expansion needs to happen. And the quality education, that to offer a good undergraduate education, what do you really need? I think it's not such a great deal to offer a good undergraduate education. And many of our second tier, third tier institutions need to start becoming as good as IITs when it comes to providing that quality undergraduate education. So I think that is something that needs to happen now. And I think when we do all of that, I think when the supply and demand situation is addressed a little bit, I think things will become better for everybody. And so I hope that will happen in the near future.
So, who are the decision makers for the expansion of IITs?
It's all ministry. I mean, because for that there needs to be a proper finance model, right? A financial model for running IIT. Now, if I know that if IIT Delhi today admits 1,000 more students, right, I should know what will I get as a support from the ministry. Right? Because I'm not even charging any fee from students. So now these 1,000 students, the system needs to support and needs to sustain that kind of a growth. And for that, the ministry needs to say that you will receive this much of money per student. Like there is a finance model which is linked to the number of students we have. Then we can follow that and then expand the system. There is no such model right now. Whether I have 1,000 less students or 1,000 more students, the funding I receive will exactly be the same.
Right.
So now if you are in that situation, if I know that I am hurting myself by increasing the intake, no IIT would ever do that. And that's the reason why IITs on their own have never increased their intake. We have increased the intake when there was Mandal Commission and when there is a EWS implementation in the last few years. Otherwise, when did we last increase any intake in the IITs? Because there is no incentive, there is no financial model. It's all very ad hoc. The funding that IITs receive is not linked to the number of students we have, neither is it linked to the research output that we produce. As a result, now it's all running, but I have been saying this at various fora. Hopefully, somebody will realize that, and I think not having a proper financial model for institutions is hurting the institutions in a major way when it comes to the expansion of these institutions.
Right. So thank you so much, Professor Rao. It has been amazing conversation. Too much to learn from this, and I hope that institutional directors or leadership will watch this episode and kind of implement the model of IIT Delhi to their institutions. Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Hope you loved the episode. Subscribe to our show and see you next Saturday.